Mcroom is the principal town in the mid-Cork region. It was founded on an elevated site overlooking the banks of the Slavin River. In former times, its name was known as Mcroom, and this endows its locals with the title of Mcrompians. Nowadays, the population stands marginally in excess of 2,500 inhabitants. Macroom, which is within the barony of Musgrave, is the principal market town for the surrounding hinterland. This extends from the Dernasagat Mountains in the west, as well as Mushra Moor and Mushra Beag, which form a backdrop to Mount Massey on the northern side. Slavin Hill extends from the eastern side and almost stands guard all along the southern flank of the town. Although ribbon-like on the outskirts, the main body of the town is centralised and concentrated around the town square. The Slavin River, passing beneath the old stone bridge, acts as nature's divider of the town. The reflections along the river have inspired both painters and poets down the years. On the old bridge's battlement long would I stay, till the skylark betoken the coming of dawn, and descending on high I look down on my way for a last long farewell to my lovely Ceylon. New Street, the birthplace of the late Olympian poet and playwright T.C. Murray, was also known as Bohernesup and Pound Lane in former times. Across the bridge, Castle Street, with its many attractive stone-built houses, ascends towards the town square. The policy in recent years of restoring many of the original stone facades has done much to enhance the old-world character of Mcroom. Such restoration work, coupled with many other improvements, has played a vital role in attracting more visitors to the town, as Mcroom is strategically situated between Cork and Killarney, as well as being only a short distance from Blarney. Mcroom has its own castle tower, standing as an elegant and historical monument which bore witness to ancient tragedies and many fine traditions. Traditions like the hooded cloak recalled by Denai Casey.
All everybody, all the women, they got a massive there, 100 o'clock in the morning, up downtown, and they'd be on it in hooded cloaks. They covered everything, it did. They covered everything, to be on it in hooded cloaks.
Would they?
They would, all 100 cloaks.
The broad expanse of the main street is much transformed from what it was in past decades. Its appearance nowadays has been very much enhanced by the addition of flowering tubs, tree planting, a variety of hand-painted lettering and signs embossed on old-style shop fronts, as well as traditional street lamps, all helping to impart and create a convivial atmosphere and an aesthetically pleasing image all along the main thoroughfare. The inspired words of a former bard are appropriate and spoken with respect and pride by locals, on echoing the lines, "Whoever means to shake off gloom, let them repair to sweet Mcroom." The traditional marketplace in the town has always been within the square. Produce of all kinds was brought into town to be bought and sold, and sometimes even bartered in former years. Nowadays, designated days and allotted areas facilitate the controlled selling of clothing, plants, fish, fruits, vegetables, and even an assortment of tools for the DIY enthusiast. Traditionally, the square was also, of course, the focal point for the fair day. On such days, cattle were herded into the square or the fair field in the early dawn, and often occupied the same space all day until their masters had agreed to strike a bargain for a change of ownership. The opening of the mart by the co-op on the Fairfield grounds terminated an old tradition that often meant a marathon stay in town for both man and beast on fair day. And I oft recall my childhood days, those days that passed too soon. There was one day beyond compare, it was fair day in Mcroom. It was the greatest day of all, this monthly buy and sell. They came from all the countryside with such a tale to tell. The square was such a bedlam with the hustle of the fair. When we were on our way to school, how we longed to stop and stare. There were ladies from Cork city, their stock spread round the square, all calling out for customers to come and buy their wares. The pubs were always busy with only standing room. A great day for the country folk and for the business in Macroom. Alas, those days have long since gone, but if I could call the tune, my wish would be to walk the square on the fair day in Macroom.
In those days of match-made marriages, unknown to bride and groom, in the snug or tap room many a couple met their doom. Alas, those days have long since gone, if I could call the tune, my wish would be to walk the square on fair day in Macroom.
Prominence has been given to the well-preserved old village pump and its perpetually flowing stream of water. The master craftsmanship of Patrick O'Connor Coolcower, expressed in the highly ornamental railing securing the near vertical steps on the town hall, is much admired. Admired too is the array of buildings of various sizes that form a section of the periphery of the old square. A blend of daring and conservative colours appear complementary and advertise a range of modern and traditional business pursuits. The town is unique in having a block of buildings erected in the middle square. This particular section was once Baldwin's Hotel, owned by an old family now gone from the town for over 2 decades. The family names of Cronin, Corrigan and Murphy are synonymous with this corner opening into the main street. Modern-day cleaning services, electrical, electronic, drapery and supermarkets are also prevalent. At the junction of the North Square stands the Victoria Hotel. A nearby lane once housed Fleming's Forge, and subsequently it was called Brewery Lane. The remainder of this block is devoted to a solicitor's office, pharmacy, hardware, 3 pubs, an electrical store and the Bank of Ireland, which was once the National Bank building. The Allied Irish Bank occupies the centre of West Square, and the T-shaped block in Middle Square separates the main street from the back square. On the southern side, the main street commences at the Palace Cinema near the entrance to Duggan's Lane. Most of the business premises along here, which include vintners, butchers and a printing works, have a long tradition in business. The last original shoemaker's shop was also here. A restaurant, insurance, florists, the credit union, jewellers and travel agency broaden the range of services available on the street. The large mounting stone at the end of Chapel Hill where a water pump was once located and where many public announcements were proclaimed, marks the beginning of Railway View. In this quarter, family names like Coughlin, Graham, Sheehan, Kelleher, Casey, McSweeney, Fitzgeralds have continued over successive generations. Some years ago, An Post erected a new post office at the top of Barrett Place. And along this section of the street, the names of the Horseshoe Hotel and Beamishes were once in evidence. It is also appropriate that the name of McCarthy should stand out in this town where the First Lord of Musgrave resided. A twinning with the town of Boobury in Brittany is fostered through regular exchanges. Much credit and recognition goes to the residents here for their commitment and effort in promoting their own Railway View Festival that is staged twice a year. The festivals held in the spring and at harvest time offer an attractive programme of events and help significantly in bringing more business to the town. The Town Hall occupies the heart of the square here in Mcroom. The decision to build an administrative centre was taken by the members of the first Town Commissioners in 1898. The engineer for the project was Mr. A.W. Barnard, who then resided in Cooleyhan. Permission to erect the new building was obtained from Lady Ordelon, and following the removal of an old market house on the site, the foundation stone was laid in 1902. The completed stone building was officially opened by Mrs. Samuel Baldwin in the autumn of 1904. In recent years, the building was refurbished at the behest of the Town Clerk and the Urban District Council, and a clock was provided for the very first time. The chimes are supplied by the old bell, which was installed in 1989, having been donated by the Church of Ireland community following the closure of the church in Castle Street. The building is also illuminated, and this has done much to highlight its attractive architectural features, as well as restoring a new sense of pride in the old town hall. On a spring day with her sister, and looking out a window from one of the local hotels that overlooked the old market house, Eileen noticed the young dashing officer riding into the square. Magrog Dangenho, my love of great character, Lauda Vakahu, the first time I saw you, a Countian Varga at the thatch of the market, Hug Huil Aragwit, my eyes enveloped you, Hug Macree Tenivdit, my heart was joyous for you, Delius Caradlat, I left my friends for you, Ivad o Valalet, threw away my home for you. These lines recall the romantic story of Arthur Lera. This is Raleigh House, once the home of the outlawed Arthur Lera and his wife Eileen O'Connell. She was grand aunt of Daniel O'Connell, the Liberator. Art and Eileen lived here for 6 years, up to the time of his death on the 4th of May 1773. The well-preserved cobblestone stableyard remains undisturbed and stables the present-day horses of the Vaughan family who run a successful riding school at Raleigh. The stable that once housed Arthur Lera's famous bay mare remains intact, and it was from here that he set forth on that fateful day to journey to Carrignakora in pursuit of his great adversary, Abraham Morris. Nowadays, visitors from all over Europe come here annually to avail of the opportunity to visit the house and riding stables. Many relaxing on horseback as they ride through the fields, along by the river, and through the deciduous woodland that encircles the house. Arto Lera was a noted horseman and had served in the Austrian army of the Empress Maria Therese. His bay mare, which caused him to be outlawed, is said to have been presented to him by the Empress.
This is Morris's bridge across the River Lorna in Shannakiel, a few miles outside the town. In the background is Hanover Hall, which was once the residence of Abraham Morris. Morris had been appointed sheriff and resided in this house in 1773.
Usurping his power as sheriff and harnessing the corruption of the penal laws, Morris demanded that Art should hand over his horse to him for £5. Art refused and was declared an outlaw. Morris was returning from a visit to Draja Castle near Mill Street and spotted Art on horseback near the village of Kharignakora. Morris, with his party of soldiers, gave chase, forcing Art to cross the river Foharish into the townland of Kharignakora. Morris remained on the road and ordered one of his horsemen to fire at Art, who had stopped on the bank of the river. The well-directed fatal shot felled him from his horse, and the great bay mare returned home riderless to Rawley House. Eileen immediately mounted the horse and returned to Carrignakora to find her dead husband adjacent to the river. Today, a stone-mounted plaque marks the site where he died. Eileen was deeply stricken with grief and wrote an epic lament entitled Cuina Arto Lera. This has been translated by many well-known authors, including Frank O'Connor and Brendan Kennelly. The remains of Arto Lera, on being removed from Carrignakora, were first buried in Ballyvuig or Kilnamatra. Some time later, the body was exhumed and removed from this ancient townland to a plot in a field adjoining the Franciscan friary at Kilcray near Ovens. Eventually the remains found their final resting place beneath the Gothic arches and columns of the roofless friary in a flag-lined tomb protected by a low railing in a sheltered corner of the nave. The inscription on the weathered cap still reads, Lo Arthur Leary, generous, handsome, brave, slain in his bloom, lies in this humble grave. Died the 4th of May 1773, aged 26 years.
Oh, I long to remember those bright days of yore, which sweetly with joy I beguiled. The friends who frequented my old cabin floor, and comrades I loved when a child. How I longed for to roam by Mount Massey's green groves, or poach by the light of the moon. That spot of my birth, there's no equal on earth, Mount Massey, the flower of Mcroom. So friends, come with me, for 'tis there you will see the apples and cherries in bloom. And 'tis you I'll invite, where I first saw the light, in Mount Massey, the flower of Mcroom.
The town itself, coming up through, say, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s even, people often say that things were tough in town at the time, that there wasn't an awful lot going for it, was there?
There wasn't a bit, not a bit. So they'd be playing, sitting down above the castle gate down the summertime, maybe till 12 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
Go on.
Nothing, you had nothing.
Yes.
At that time, you would be the packet of woodbines on 8
Yes.
and they'd be 2 of us together. We might have a penny each.
Go on.
And
You'd pool resources, would you?
And then there was 5 woodbines in the packet, and then he'd be half in one, and I'd say to him, "You have the big half, maybe the small half." And this thing, there was nothing there.
And no work then, I suppose, either.
No, so the people were only existing.
Yes.
They hadn't, in fact, they hadn't enough to eat, I'd say.
Being airy and fond of recreation, by the river I chanced for to stroll. Being weary from my rambles and walking, I sat myself down by a grove. In contentment I sat meditating, till the sun had its rays all withdrawn, when a damsel of a queenly appearance came wandering down by Salon. Howsoever we strolled on together, inhaling that pleasant fine air, she replied in a tone most melodious.
River Salon rises in the distant Dernasoggart Mountains, west of the Gaeltacht village of Coolay, renowned for its Irish scholars and, of course, Sean O'Riada. The river runs rapidly into Ballavorna and passes under the bridge at the mills. This village has a castellated building which was once a police barracks, courthouse and a jail. It was burned down in 1920. The Seamus Murphy stone-carved statue of St. Gobnet with a beehive at her feet marks an early 6th century Christian site and overlooks the river as it flows onwards through the village of Ballymakeera. The village derives its name from MacTeer's habitation and is also called Corrigan, as in Cromwellian times locals stripped the roof of St. Gobnet's church and hid the timber near the village, hoping to replace it later.
that the pottery that we've made is now in the final process of production. We're firing the kiln, and this will mean that the glazes on the pots will be matured and will actually become proper glazes as they will be sold in our shop. What's happened is I've been here since 6 o'clock this morning and it's now 4 o'clock in the afternoon. With another 2 hours to go. The glazes are just starting to melt, and this is one of the only wood-fired kiln in Ireland, so we get particularly nice effects from the wood ash, which is rushing through the kiln now and landing on the outside of the pots and giving them a distinctive look. Then of course there's the various sizes of teapot. My wife does this decoration on this particular teapot, which is carved, and it's highlighted by the wood ash.
Well, just up behind you there, you have a very nice vase as well.
Yes.
If we could have a look at that, please.
This is a vase for tall grasses, or anything with a long stem, like so.
And the actual craftsmanship comes through the coiling, isn't it?
Yes, these are called the throwing rings. Everything is made on the wheel here.
Yes.
And this is actually the marks that the fingers make as you go up, and depending on whether you go up fast or slowly, you can see these throwing rings, and it also highlights the glazes quite nicely.
Well, we have the small cereal bowls, but this one would be more of a mixing bowl. It's got something you can actually whip up batter and pour out of it, and it can also double as like a fruit bowl or salad bowl. And then we also make the ones without the lip, and people say they'd like to turn them inside out and let the glaze be on the outside, but I find them very handy in the kitchen for just mixing up anything. And then this would also be a bowl of sorts, but it's designed to actually go in the oven, and it's microwave proof and oven proof, so you can make a crumble or casserole and just stick it in the oven, bake in it.
How long does it take overall, the entire process?
To get one single piece from clay to being finished would be a minimum of 2 months.
Would you have to respond to the marketplace too,
yes,
of course,
we
don't
do.
you?
Yeah, we do respond to the marketplace, and that can get a little bit tiresome sometimes when you realize mugs are selling, so I have to make 50 more mugs when I'd rather be making teapots.
Oh,
but
David.
it's the motivation is groceries at the end of the week.
Continuing along, the river passes close to the Mons Bar at the halfway, then on to the townland of Cariga, which lies 2 miles west of Mcroom.
It is dominated by its 15th century tower house, elevated here on a glaciated rock and known locally as the Rock of the Fairies or the Rock of the Fairy Horse.
This magnificent tower house was built by the McCarthys as an outpost from their castle at Drashan near Mill Street. It is maintained in excellent condition by the Office of Public Works and is visited annually by many locals and casual tourists who traverse a short distance across the fields before surmounting the steps that lead to the top of the castle. History records that Cormac Tig McCarthy retreated to Cariga following the defeat of the Irish at the Battle of Kinsale in 1601. And O'Sullivan Bear besieged the castle sometime later with 500 marksmen to rout Thady McCarthy's son, who had been pardoned by the Queen for siding with the Irish at Kinsale. The castle offers a breathtaking view of the surrounding countryside, encompassing gorse-covered rocks and expanses of rich alluvial pasture nourished from the floodwaters of the River Salone. In ancient times, the townland formed part of a greater territory ruled by the Two and the Drummond, and a poem reads, "The conquering Flann o'er all this tract did reign, no rent, no tribute for this land he paid." After passing under Raleigh Bridge and the main bridge in Mcroom, the Salon flows along by Cooleyhan and reaches Bailick, where it captures the Lorna River above its final bridge.
This is the meeting of the waters just outside the town.
In the background is the townland of Bailick.
This is a very old roadway called Ballochleachta. In Mcroom, it's known as the Bowl Road. It comes down from Cork Street, across the River Salon, across a flagstone crossing, and on up here through this roadway, right up to Bailick.
Local historians have laid claim to the belief that the famous Battle of Ballochleachta occurred on this side of the river in the year 978 AD. It was a battle in which Brian Boru defeated Maelmua and the Danes of Munster. Brian had issued a challenge following the murder of his brother by Maelmua to come to Ballochleachta with the muster of his army and his followers. During the battle, Maelmua was killed and his army was routed and driven over Slavin. After the battle, Brian made peace with Kiln, the son of Maelmua, and installed him as the chief of the Iachach and Lord of Desmond. He also gave him the hand of his daughter Sive in marriage. Kiln subsequently fought alongside Brian at the Battle of Clontarf in 1014. Thus, the Battle of Ballochleachta near Mcroom united two major Irish clans, the O'Briens and the O'Mahanys. Evidence for this battle is reinforced by the existence of 2 of 3 standing stones on the northern bank. Bailick has been the centre of industrial activity for well over 100 years. The old stone mill, built during the 18th century, with its vertical mill wheel, stands idle. This was once owned by Hardings, later Loonies, and nowadays by Horgans of Ferville. Idle too is the nearby Macroom engineering factory, which closed in 1964, having been over 20 years in production. Upstream from Bailick is the remains of the oldest mill, once worked by a member of the Walton family. The grinding stone and timber pulley wheels, which were once powered by a mill race, stand out of place. Another Walton's mill nearby continues the production of Mcroom oatmeal up to the present time. The ultra-modern, computerized Mcroom mills on the outskirts of the town provide significant employment and delivers a range of animal foodstuffs throughout the country, thus eliminating the need for the traditional source of power which came from the river.
At spot of my birth, there's no equal on earth, Mountain Massey, the flower of Mcroom. So friends, come with me, and 'tis there you will see the apples and cherries in bloom. And 'tis you I'll invite, where I first saw the
Mcroom is unique in being a town of 2 towns. Massey Town, named after the Massey family who resided in Mount Massey House, and the foundation stone of which was laid in 1783, developed as an independent entity with its own fairs, and the tenants, many of whom worked on the Massey estate, paid their dues to the Masseys during the 18th and 19th century. A recent residential addition has been O'Connor Park, named after the late Archdeacon Dennis O'Connor, PP. Overlooking the entrance to Masseytown is the cut limestone facade of the present-day courthouse. Nearby is the Parochial House, the home of consecutive parish priests down the years. The Garda Station, also accessed via the Barrack Lane, was built as a replacement bridewell for the older and more renowned bridewell on the top of Castle Street. The prominent monument situated in the centre of the bridge commemorates the memory of an outstanding Land League and Gaelic League priest who died in 1920. The priest was, of course, Untitled Chapter. He had dedicated his life first and foremost as a priest and also to the restoration of the Irish language through his various writings. The monument is adjacent to where he attended a classical school at the Castle Street end of the bridge. Untitled Chapter was born in this house at Liscarrigan in the parish of Clondrohid in 1839. A considerable range of artefacts from his old home are now carefully preserved in Kilmurray Museum. Some are also displayed in the museum in Mcroom, which bears the name of this great Irish priest and scholar. In the words of the first president, Dr. Douglas Hyde, Untitled Chapter turned his face resolutely towards the folk speech of his native county Cork, which he wrote with a crystal clearness and which has never been surpassed. Mcroom, although built on the River Salone, is also very closely associated with the River Lee and the magnificence of the beautiful Lee Valley extending to the south and west of the town. This valley, comprising of an idyllic blend of mountains, woods and lakeland, originates in the majestic setting of Gugan Barra. Gugan Barra owes its name and fame to Saint Finbar. He was the founder of Cork City and also its first bishop. The name Gugan Barra means the rock cleft of Barra. The island on which the modern-day oratory stands as a place of pilgrimage is adjacent to the old monastic site where Finbar is said to have spent 7 years fasting and in prayer. The reconstruction of the old monastery with its cloistered cells reveals the hardship experienced by the saint and his disciples during the 6th century. The great natural beauty of Gugan Barra is very much appreciated by the many visitors that come here from near and far throughout the year. This valley where the River Lee rises also contains a forest park. The forest provides nature trails which are of varying lengths. Some of the pathways through the forest are more challenging and provide access for hill walkers into the mountains that surround this glaciated valley. The late Cardinal Manning of Ballingeary appreciated Gugan as one of nature's great beauty spots. Downstream from Gugan, the river passes beneath this pedestrian flagstone bridge that predates all other bridges across the Lee. The bridge provides a welcome to the Gaelic village of Béalahan Gaerig, or Ballingeary. Here the everyday language of the people is Gaelic or Irish, and an Irish college for teachers was founded here in 1904. Each summer, students from all over Ireland come to Ballingeary to improve their spoken Irish, as well as enjoying themselves in such pleasant surroundings, and learning traditional dancing and singing. The village is notable for the great diversity of small enterprises that have been developed by members of the local community. Such enterprise is fostered in the students within the local schools. Apart from the normal range of business conducted in most villages, Ballingeary can boast the production of high-quality products that have international appeal. Products with a particular Irish flavour, such as Irish whiskey and porter cakes, which have proved to be an outstanding success. This type of industry is accommodated in one of a number of small attractive cottages located in the centre of the village. Another enterprise with a particular emphasis on Celtic design engraved on a range of leather-crafted goods is housed nearby. All of the artwork is done by hand using locally produced dyes. The products are finished to a very high standard, ensuring top quality and are guaranteed Irish. Many of the designs are also drawn from old Irish manuscripts. The village also has a mail order centre. One of the great social occasions in the village is welcoming home the team on winning the local football championship. Everyone appears uninhibited and show their expression of the players and mentors, and as usual, it ends in song. East of Ballingeary, the Lee broadens out into a magnificent lake called Loch Alua. The remains of ancient dwellings called crannogs are still visible, and the tranquil waters facilitate an escape for a visiting boatman and others enjoying an afternoon out on the lake. Nearby along the roadway that encircles the lake is a Mass rock. Mass was celebrated here in secret during the penal times and is still revered up to the present. Another highly revered site is this grotto near Inchigeela. Following the broad expanse of the lake and running on, the Lee narrows on reaching the village of Inchigeela. In the village, the river passes under a bridge, and this village bears the translated name of the River Inch of the Fetters. Kharignakora Castle was the principal castle of the O'Leary clan. They gave their name to this district called Evelary. The castle, built by Sabina O'Carroll, wife of one of the O'Learys, is the first castle on the Lee and is situated just east of Inchigeela village. Another historical site in an adjacent parish is the site of the Kilmichael ambush. Here, a small group of volunteers ambushed a convoy of British auxiliaries on the 28th of November 1920. Another bridge spans the Lee at Dromcara. This townland, with its attractive roadside hostelry verging the river, means the ridge of the causeway or stepping stones. The ruins of a second O'Leary castle survived in this district until 1968. Further along the main road towards Mcroom is the River Toon. This parallels the River Lee, and both rivers flow into the Gera. The Gera acquires its name from the Gaelic Ungaera, meaning the wooded river. It has a rich and diverse flora and was officially declared a nature reserve in 1987. It is also the home for a considerable population of indigenous and migratory species of birds. This unique post-glacial formation, now only partially covered in oak forest, represents the only extensive alluvial forest in Ireland. And apart from the roadways which run through the Gera, the land is now extensively flooded and acts as a reservoir to power the hydroelectric station further down the River Lee at Cariga Draja Dam. Its final bridge in the Mcroom area is at Coolcower. A short distance onwards it captures the River Salon. Both rivers, now united as the River Lee, add significantly to the great beauty of the Lee Valley. Lil, you have a very special connection with the club here.
Well, we have actually, because I'm involved here locally in the club. I'm secretary of the Carrick Club, but what you'd be interested to know is that the club caters not only for able-bodied skiers, but it also caters for disabled skiers. It's the national training site for disabled skiers, and as well as being a secretary here, I'm the actual disabled officer on the Irish Water Ski Federation. The Irish Water Ski Federation is the governing body of skiing for the whole of Ireland, 32 counties of Ireland.
And how many disabled persons now actually take part in the activities here?
Well, we started into disabled last year and we ran a course. We trained 10 paraplegic people to ski. This year we upped that number by another 3, and for the first time ever we introduced blind to water skiing, and we ran a course here earlier on in the year and we had 9 blind people trained. We also had 2 leg amputees. We have 32 able-bodied members this year.
Right, and do they compete then as well? Do you have competitions here at
Yes,
the club?
We have 2 people who compete on a regular basis, and we have about 5 that we're hoping will be competing next year. We have run a couple of national competitions here ourselves for able-bodied skiers. We're trying to establish the site, and we're also trying to establish the site. We're developing it very much, as you can see. There's a lot of work going on around. We're developing this hopefully to run an international disabled event in 2 years' time.
The River Lee meets its first major control point at Cariga Draja Dam. This dam, constructed in the late 1950s, produces electricity for the national grid. Below the dam stands a fish farm, and a short distance away the village of Cariga Draja Dam. The village is renowned for its castle built on a rock in the River Lee. It was here that Bishop Boetius MacEgan of Ross was hanged outside the walls with the reins of his own horse by Cromwell's general Lord Broghill in 1650. The body of the murdered bishop, who once served the papal nuncio, is said to be interred in the grounds of the old and now derelict church in Ahina. This headstone stands in memory of the martyred bishop Boetius MacEgan. The River Lee flows close to the village of Coachford. It is now 7 miles distant from Mcroom. Coachford is typical of many Irish villages, having developed at a cross of 4 roads. Below the village, the River Lee, now slow-moving, passes beneath Roof's Bridge, on via its second dam at Enniscarra, and to its final destination, Cork City. Mcroom Castle domain, acquired for the people of the town in the early 1920s, includes an extensive tract of land extending from inside the attractive Castle Gate entrance. Within the domain, a range of leisure facilities have been provided over the years. These include a sports centre, picnic areas, fishing, swimming in the salon, a football pitch, and also a golf course. All of these facilities are convenient to the town, as the Castle Gate entrance opens out into the square. Mcroom Golf Club was founded in the early to mid-1920s. It was the first club to be established within the domain. This golf course replaced an earlier course on the northwestern bank of the river. Apart from the excellence and sporting challenges offered to the players, they also appreciate and benefit from the magnificent scenery in the surrounding countryside. This extends for miles in all directions from all aspects of this picturesque course. The present 9-hole course has a good balance of low-lying and hilly fairways and will test the lowest handicapper. Plans are in the advanced stage for the building of a new clubhouse on the Killarney Road. The construction of an extra 9 holes is now nearing completion, and the full 18-hole course will open in 1994. The extra 9 holes are being laid out on land which was once part of the castle domain. A number of the new greens are adjacent to the River Salon, and the extensive excavations necessary in the construction are located inside the boundary wall which extends towards Mount Hedges. The extra 9 holes are expected to be more testing, with the addition of attractive water traps and more undulating greens. This extension to the course will blend perfectly with the older 9 holes and will facilitate an increase in membership. The course is also very popular for passing visitors, who can avail of a round of golf by contributing green fees. Apart from the excavation work necessary to construct the additional holes, the Golf Club Committee also acquired land on the northwestern bank of the river. A new pedestrian bridge was constructed across the Salon. On this side of the river, the players will play out the 18th hole and return to a clubhouse which will become the new home of the Macroom Golf Club and its 18-hole course. The castle domain is also a haven for those wishing to take a quiet stroll through its many deciduous and evergreen groves. Others prefer to saunter along by the river towards the eyes of the bridge and past the scented and varied-coloured rhododendrons that dominate this estate. The Castle Domain Committee are to be highly commended in preserving the walkways and retaining the great natural environment of this historic estate on behalf of the people of Mcroom. On a fine summer's day, it is truly delightful to take a short walk to the top of Slavin. 'Twill pay you right well, though the ascent is frightful, for there you behold a magnificent scene. The section of the domain immediately in front of the site of the old castle is utilised by the Mcroom GAA Club. The Mcroom Show Society also use the grounds for their annual summer show, and this is a great social event for both the town and country people.
Along the bank
I know, just in your chair.
Had an advantage, but typical, I suppose, of Mcroom and the spirit they always show. They didn't give in, they fought back, and I think they have to be sincerely complimented for the spirit they showed right to the end in winning the title. Now, I want at this stage to hand the cup to Noel and to wish him on behalf of the board and every club in the division the best of luck in the county championship.
Hold it again. Hold it again. Go, Charles! And then Noel by. Well, I haven't much to say that. That's a change. It's a great privilege for me to accept this cup on behalf of the Mcroom team for the first time in 46 years. So I'd like to thank the Ivleary team for giving us a great sporting game. I said 2 cheers for Ivleary. Hip hip!
I want to introduce John Kelleher and again to thank him and his company for sponsoring the championship and the Man of the Match award. And we'll ask John now to announce the winner, please.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I'd like to thank the board for giving me the opportunity to start the championship and to congratulate the crew on an excellent performance, and congratulations to Inchigira for their fine display. Now, the selection committee for the Man of the Match decided that for the most consistent display during the 60 minutes, Joe Murray from Inchigira,
The Macroom GA Club was founded in 1886 and holds the unique distinction as a town of 10 senior county football championships in Gaelic football.
In all your days roving, you'll find them so jovial as our master is sportsman devoted will.
On this occasion, the junior team were successful in the Mid-Cork Championship. Each year, adult and underage teams wearing the distinctive green and white colours that have been retained since the foundation of the club over 100 years ago participate in the different competitions at divisional and county level. The club has an avid following, many of whom are former players basking in the great glories of the past and remain optimistic of even greater achievements in the future. For we don't care whether we win or lose or draw, for all the hell we care. All we know is there's going to be a match, and the good old Mcroom boys will be there.
I think it was the determination of the lads there today that made it possible. Every one of the team played their heart out. They were 7 points down early on, but obviously came back and held on to a narrow lead. Well, we have quite a lot of players available to us now. One would say that we could have 3 teams, the makings of 3 teams, but obviously, again, in senior championship, you need a tremendous effort and tremendous commitment. We have the players, we have the skill. I think it's possible that we could go on to win a senior county in the next few years. So, that's our ambition.
I'm going to give them a cup, the school boys, and they collected bills around and they brought money.
Yes.
They collected bills. It was an center.
Yes.
For the Large Art Cup.
I see. And what you sing?
Only in visions now your face I see. Only in thought your memory be. Only in thought my wounded soul will thrill, thinking you love me. Thinking you love me still. Come on, Mcroom.
Good man. The current chairman of the Castle Domain Committee is Martin Fitzgerald, whose grandfather, John Martin, was one of the founding members to acquire the estate from Lady Ordelon in the 1920s.
This domain is of immense value and importance to Mcroom and to the people of the town. Apart from the social and leisure advantages it offers, it also brings significant additional business to the golf club, football matches, and of course the sports centre. The original trustees in the 20s showed great foresight in acquiring it on behalf of the people of the town and surrounding district.
Nearby, the community sports centre is used for a range of indoor games like badminton, basketball, weight training and indoor football. It also acts as a counting centre during general elections. An orienteering map of the domain adds another to the list of sports already practiced within the estate. A notable and historic figure to visit the castle in 1645 was the papal nuncio, Archbishop Rinuccini.
Cormac, the 11-year-old son of Lord and Lady Musgrave, escorted His Excellency to the castle gate entrance here in the town. He was accompanied by 50 well-appointed horsemen and foot soldiers. Lady Musgrave, kneeling before him to obtain his blessing, then conveyed the nuncio to a well-appointed stateroom in the main castle of Mcroom.
Sir Richard Cox claims that Mcroom Castle was built in the reign of King John, 1167 to 1216. The last owner of the castle was Lady Ordelon, wife of Sir Arthur Guinness. She was the daughter of the 3rd Earl of Bantry and claimed that her father was a direct descendant of the McCarthys, the Lords of Musgrave, who resided in the castle up to the middle of the 17th century. The disused castle was used as a handball alley by the young men of the town up to the 1960s. Pictures of various groups were also captured on the castle grounds, like the coursing club and also the Mcroom Fishing Club, taken on the entrance steps. After the Cromwellian Wars in 1656, the castle was granted to Admiral Sir William Penn, father of the founder of the state of Pennsylvania. He resided there for 4 years, and the castle was eventually sold to the Hollow Sword Blade Company, who resold it to Judge Bernard of Bandon. It was then acquired by Robert Hedges' heir, and eventually by the Earl of Bantry. The castle was burned 5 times throughout its history. However, its sad demise came in 1967 when the entire building was demolished and removed from its site in the scenic Castle Domain. The Mcroom Cottage Hospital now occupies the site of the old Mcroom Union or workhouse. The building was first proposed in 1838. It was officially opened in 1843 with an accommodation for 650 inmates. This is the last remaining relic of the old building. The purpose of the union was to alleviate the appalling conditions and destitutional poverty that existed in the urban and rural areas of the district. The union was administered by a board of guardians and a clerk of the union. Many of the inmates found security away from the terrible starvation and conditions that prevailed in their own homes. However, large numbers failed to survive and were buried as paupers in this cemetery at Cariga Draja Dam outside the town. A large concrete cross stands to their memory within the cemetery. Each year, Mass is celebrated by the parish priest of Clondrohid, and an inscription at the entrance reads, Our pen, our art won fame, philosophers to Ireland came. Alas, came penal laws, tyrant's hand, famine, plague, stalked our land. By yonder plot in mass we lay, may this land, at peace and free, again serve God and humanity. Codrum House derives its name from Codrum, or the parallel ridge, and dates to the middle of the 18th century. The house, now in a pitiful condition, was once elegant in its sylvan setting, comprising of oak and ash, beech and holly trees. The last residents, the Baldwin family, abandoned the house in the 1960s, and many of the mature and transitional trees have been cut to make way for new pasture land. This house is renowned locally as having been the residence of Colonel Robert Massey Hutchinson in the year 1799. In April of that year, a local, Malachy Duggan, and a party of 14 men raided the house and shot dead Colonel Hutchinson on the stairs. The subsequent inquiry and an offer of a reward of £300 resulted in Duggan betraying his comrades. 6 were captured and sentenced to death by hanging. The prisoners were brought from Cork and executed on a scaffold erected in the square. The bodies were beheaded and the heads were placed on spikes in front of this building, which was then the old Bridewell. An English Act of Parliament passed in 1715 proposed that a canal should be built between Cork and Mcroom. This proposal never came to fruition. However, on the 12th of May 1866, the first passenger train arrived in Mcroom from Capwell Station in Cork. Here at Mcroom railway station, now the bus station, passengers boarded horse-drawn coaches for their onward journeys to Glengarriff and Killarney. As well as the passenger train, there was also a freight service in and out of town. Cattle, sheep and pigs, as well as an assortment of goods, were all catered for. The hustle and bustle of the passenger train service came to an end on the 29th of June 1935. The freight service continued for a further 18 years until it eventually closed in 1953. The tracks remained until 1954 and were then raised, marking the end of an era that holds nostalgic memories for many who experienced a trip on the train from Macroom to Cork. A glance at the pages of Guy's Directory, compiled in the early decades of this century, indicates the professions: bill posters, blacksmiths, brewers' agents and builders, cabinet makers, car owners, dressmakers, harness makers, hardware merchants, ironmongers and shoemakers. This business premises, established in 1903 and situated in the South Square, is the oldest hardware shop in town. At one time the town had 6 bakeries. Nowadays only 2 remain: Lynch's handmade bread and this ultra-modern and highly automated plant, Neville's Bakery. Here the bread making process is computerized and all ingredients are untouched by human hand through the various stages of mixing, proofing, weighing, loading, baking, cooling and wrapping. The great wonderment of modern technology, encompassing elements of robotics and pneumatics, is fully appreciated here, and make this plant very labour efficient, with a phenomenal daily output of a variety of different types of bread. The bread is conveyed through the different stages by a series of conveyor belts, moving at varying speeds. At the end of the line, it arrives at the wrapping machine, then passes on to be automatically priced. The bread is then removed and placed on trolleys, ready for loading onto vans and lorries that distribute it to the many retail outlets throughout the country. Across from the much revered St. Berahardt's Well is the IDA Industrial Estate at Hartnett's Cross. Located here is the General Instrument Plant, which is highly technical and provides high employment to its local workforce. This factory continues to be very progressive and is due for further major expansion in the near future. A short distance away at Castle View stands the Dairygold factory built by Ballyclaw Cooperative. This plant utilises the milk collected from the surrounding farms and produces powdered milk for export. Bulk tanks are continually on the go between the farms and the factory, and a high level of employment at all levels has been generated within this modern plant, standing on the verge of the Gera and the beautiful Lee Valley. At the back of Fitzgerald Street stands this tall chimney, which once helped to provide the electric lighting system for the town. This was managed by the late Daniel Graham. The fair field, where a part of the traditional fair was held, and the site of Duffy's Circus on its annual visit to town, is almost totally covered by Mcroom Mart. The mart has been in existence for almost 3 decades and has totally replaced the old town fair and removed the animals completely from the streets and town. Farmers came from far and wide to buy and sell with care, and many a bargain had been struck that big day at the fair. The horse and crib are no more. Powerful articulated lorries and trailers transport the animals to the mart, where they fall under the hand of the auctioneer and the price is competed for in an open forum. There is also, of course, plenty of time for inspection afforded to the potential buyer. The pitch of Mcroom Soccer Club is situated near the fair field. Policy adopted on afforestation of waste land on hills and mountainy areas is now contributing significantly to the local economy of many districts, including Mcroom. Fast-growing coniferous species of spruce, pine, larch and fir are harvested mechanically and then transported to local factories or exported through Cork port. In the Mcroom area, factories for making and repairing pallets are prevalent and offer good employment locally. Significantly, it adds considerable value to the raw material harvested in the adjacent forests. Imod here has Teo, located in Rainery, is a further example of adding to the value of the raw timber. Here the timber is cut using various templates. It is then treated and the pieces are assembled into a range of attractive wood products aimed at the domestic and export markets. The roadways and pathways through the growing forests are idyllic for horse riding and pony trekking. A number of such centres have become established within easy access of Mcroom. Horse and pony trekking is becoming more popular, and pleasant hours can be spent riding along the trails that interlace the forest. Others prefer to take it easy and ride around the craggy rocks that outcrop on the surrounding sandstone hills. Whichever you prefer, horse riding offers great enjoyment, fresh air, and an opportunity to appreciate nature in its own place. The equestrian centre at Raleigh House is elaborate and provides training in horse riding and jumping.
Díomh agus fáilte go dtí Studio Talán in Saha Malavorna. Hello and welcome to Salon Studios. We're situated here in Ballavourney, right in the heart of the West Cork Gaeltacht. Our business is basically to record music, and we do recordings for various artists, groups, record companies, and the type of work that we do goes right across the board. We deal with everything from rock and roll to classical to jazz music, chamber groups, literally anything in the way of sound recording. The whole building here has a recording area of roughly 2,500 square feet of usable space. We have 2 studios and a third studio which is used for audio editing, video production, tape assembly, all the extra little things. So effectively we have 3 independent studios. The type of client who comes here is now very, very varied. Some of the people that have been here who have helped us considerably in establishing the name and the reputation of the studio, I would name probably people like Mary Black, Mihala Sullivan, the Choir Boys. We have done albums for Gaeling consistently. They have supported us all the way down the line. And at the moment we are in a situation where about 60% of our work is now being generated outside of Ireland, and effectively we are becoming basically an export industry, if you like, where UK record companies are putting bands in to record in the studio here.
tradition of Irish set dancing is highly appreciated and preserved in rural villages in the Mcroom area. In the village of Clondrohid, derived from lawn or plain of the bridge, there is a great emphasis on set dancing. The village has a strong community identity, and successive priests in the parish have played a prominent role in promoting Irish culture and its heritage. One of the attractions on St. Patrick's Day in Macroom is always the impromptu set dancing display. A special timber platform is laid out to ensure that the dancing steps resound clearly throughout the square.
Video, no, go. Just a sec.
Named after the patron saint of Mcroom, St. Coleman, the Boys' National School in Cork Street, or Down Street as it was formerly known, was founded in 1908. This photograph, taken in 1918, includes Mr. Paddy Desmond, the teacher, and a class of boys, many of whom established businesses in Mcroom in later life. The school continued to be run by lay teachers until 1930, when the De La Salle brothers were invited by Canon Barrett PP to take over the administration of the school. Successive brothers, including Ferdinand, Leopold, Stanislaus, Adrian and others, have acted as principals down the years. The withdrawal of the brothers from the primary school in 1991 saw the appointment of Mr. John Brown as the first lay principal since the early 1930s. The brothers resided in the monastery, built in 1936. This is adjacent to the boys' secondary school, which was opened by the brothers in 1933. Some of the brothers who taught here in more recent decades included Hilary, Benignus, Paul, Adrian, Cyril, Leo, Jerome and Arcadius John. A new extension was added to the school in 1983. It also marked the 50th anniversary of the presence of the order in the town. The Cannons Field near the school has been the spawning ground for many fine players and athletes over the years. The attractive monastery and gardens framed many photographs of past pupils. The departure of the brothers marked the beginning of a new era with the appointment of a lay principal, Mr. Noel Dunn, in 1990. The Mercy Sisters relocated their infant and national school on opening St. Joseph's in 1974. The school, with its spacious playground, caters for boys and girls in the infant classes, and girls only in the national school.
And he isn't himself today. He's topped up in bed with a feverish head, and doesn't much care to play.
The foundation stone for a new Mercy convent was laid on the 24th of August 1857. The first sisters arrived from Cove in November 1865 and included Mother Mary Evangelist O'Mahony as superior. Since coming to Mcroom over 100 years ago, the Sisters of Mercy have established infant, primary, technical and secondary schools, particularly for the young girls of the town and surrounding area. One of the extensions added to the secondary school, called St. Mary's, was this fine sports complex, opened in 1989. A board of management was established in 1992, and this year the order appointed Mr. Jim O'Leary as the first lay principal of St. Mary's. Past pupils will value the enormous contribution by the Sisters of Mercy to education in Mcroom. Macegan College, named after Bishop Macegan, was established by the County Cork Vocational Education Committee in 1934. The college is co-educational and also provides for a range of adult education courses. The curriculum in this college altered significantly in the 1960s with the advent of free education and the introduction of the intermediate and leaving certificate programs into vocational schools. The school received a new extension in recent years. This extension, which is as large as the former school, is situated on the site of the old Mcroom Castle. Macegan College is unique as a second-level school in being the only school in the town under a local education authority. The Feroiga Club, based in Hanover Hall, draw members from all schools and have succeeded in capturing the prestigious National Feroiga Club Award this year. Their theme, Giving Something Back. The majority of the students from all the schools living outside a 3-mile radius are transported to town on special buses. This has removed much of the hardship of cycling to and from school in bad weather. The Mcroom unit of the Catholic Boy Scouts of Ireland was inaugurated in the 1970s. Much credit must go to one of its founder members, Mr. Jackie Collins. The leaders cater for beavers, cubs, scouts and venturers. The town also has a unit of the Irish Girl Guides. They cater for ladybirds, brownies, guides and rangers. The members of both units are most impressive on parade for special occasions. The local pitch and putt course has been developed in the town park. This game has become very popular in recent years, and a very attractive and challenging 18-hole course has been built on the alluvial inch all along by the river. A new clubhouse is being completed near the old mill dam, and the club continues to increase its membership annually. The Kilmichael Club is located at Anahala. It is also an 18-hole course and has excellent facilities. The pitch and putt course stands on the same site as the Kilmichael GAA Club. This is one of the oldest parishes in Ireland and derives its name from St. Michael's Church. A sporting pastime that is unique to the roads of Cork and Armagh is the game of bowling. The roads north of Mcroom are deemed very suitable as they offer bends and bumps to the players. Each game is called a score and involves 2 opponents. Normally the supporters lay a wager with each other. The player completing the measured distance on the road with the least number of throws of the iron bowl is declared the winner. This plaque commemorates the memory of former bowl players. The name of St. Coleman is commemorated within the town, and in particular, of course, in the name of the local parish church. The main body of this church was completed in 1814. Modern day developments include the installation of a spire and clock in the old tower. An outlying church at Combe was formerly in the parish of Ahina and is now administered by the priests from Mcroom. Sunnyside, the Parochial House, is the official residence of the parish priest. Immediately across the river stands the former rectory, which has been a private residence for over 2 decades. The former Church of Ireland, also called St. Coleman's, closed for service in recent years. The building has been entrusted to the local community. This church is said to have been built on the site of an old Roman Catholic church. Records indicate that the church was plundered on a number of occasions. A civil survey in 1645 states, "The Protestant church of the parish standeth in the town of Mcroom, nothing thereof remaining but a piece of broken wall." Records also show that one of the earliest rectors to serve here was William Healy in 1609. And between 1916 and 1952, 3 rectors served this parish: Reverend Mr. Brady, Reverend Mr. McConnell, and Reverend Mr. Harbord. The adjoining cemetery contains graves and vaults of both Catholics and Protestants. Also interred here are 2 former parish priests who died during the 18th century. The monument to the memory of Michael Collins stands in the townland of Bailnablaw, just 7 miles from Mcroom. A small plinth with a cross, situated nearby, marks the actual spot where he died. Each year a commemoration ceremony takes place here, and an oration is given by a notable national figure, recalling the death of Michael Collins on the 22nd of August 1922. The countryside around Mcroom is dotted with many interesting Christian and archaeological sites, like the remains of this church at Cariga near the village of Kharignakora. Mass was celebrated in this church during penal times and up to the famine from 1845 to 1847. As Mass was prohibited in those times, it was necessary to keep a lookout posted on the rocks above the church. The archaeological sites in the area include this well-preserved Portal Dolmen with its sloping capstone. This was once covered over and formed a cairn or burial mound. A short distance away is Knocknakilla with its Bronze Age stone circle, formerly used for rituals. Sites that are very prevalent on wet land are Fullock Fields. These were ancient cooking places used by hunters for boiling and roasting venison, captured during a day hunting the red deer that roamed the local countryside. Nowadays, clubs like Ahabullock Hunt go out for sport, and Mcroom Hunt Club has a long tradition in the town. The hunting dogs called beagles or harriers forage in the brakes in search of reynard and are urged on by the huntsmen, their owners and followers. Foxes are prevalent in the area and a chase is guaranteed on every outing. This photograph taken on the front lawn at Horgan's Ferville gives a good indication of the extent of the following during the 1960s. I'll sing you boys a song of home and days departed, when you and I were young, light-footed and light-hearted. Through Massey's shady groves, Keel, Bailick, bush and bramble, in fancy memory loves among these still to ramble. The ever-increasing demand for more horsepower terminated the work of the traditional blacksmith or farrier, the last of whom were located at the Forge Lane in Masseytown. Nowadays, the horses and plough are but an attraction at local shows and ploughing championships, where the artistry of the ploughman is greatly admired. The late Jerry Horgan of Ballinagree was renowned nationally as Ireland's best ploughman. Traditional farming methods are but a memory, and indeed perhaps a novelty, around Mcroom. Gone too are many of the traditional crafts like coopering, the making of a cart wheel. The tedium and art of haymaking into cocks is fast disappearing except on very small holdings in the countryside. And of course, the ancillary acts like winding a sugan to offer resistance against the southwesterlies is very rare indeed. Over the past 2 decades, a transformation has occurred on Irish farms through modernisation schemes. The Togisk Farm Training Centre has played a vital role. So also has the increased soil fertility obtained through using ground limestone drawn from the quarries at Castlemore near Crookstown. Farmers now utilise a variety of powerful and highly technical machinery on the farm. Much of the traditional hardship has now been eliminated on Irish farms, and education is all important in keeping up to date with the latest developments and techniques in farming. There is a considerable variation in the size of the farms in the Mcroom area, and also in the type of farming being practiced. A significant number of farmers focus on dairying and beef production, and most are involved in the production of silage as a source of winter feed. The farmers in the area have always been very progressive and often avail of specialist contractors to complete certain tasks. There are also, of course, many small holdings around Mcroom with a considerable acreage of marginal land. The majority of the tillage farmers specialise in growing grain, and in particular winter and summer barley. Most of the barley is sold to the local mill and used in compounding of animal foodstuffs. Very little malting barley is produced in this area. On hill farms, sheep and lamb production is the main enterprise, but the low-lying pastures are dominated by sizable herds of Frisian cows producing in excess of 1,000 gallons of milk annually. Most of the larger farms in the area have modern milking parlours with extensions containing bulk cooling tanks. This ensures that milking is less labour intensive, and especially that the milk produced is of top quality on leaving the farm. The level of milk production is now governed by quotas imposed under EC rules. The old horseplough mounted prominently at the new bridge is an indication of Mcroom's close ties with its rural hinterland. This junction separates the northern and southern route to Cork and also points the way to Blarney. A very important discovery was made in the 1950s, just 2 miles outside the town at Machaniglas. Professor Fahy of UCC decided to excavate a holy well prior to it becoming flooded by the backwater created by the Cariga Draja Dam. The excavation quickly revealed that the Tubber Bawn, or well, was in fact a very ancient corn mill and was very unique in having a horizontal mill wheel, the remains of which were recovered during the excavation. Also recovered were small white stones confirming that the well had been used as a place of pilgrimage. A working model of the Machaniglas mill was built by Professor Fahy and is a popular attraction at the museum in Fitzgerald's Park, Cork.
Machaniglas Castle was built by the McCarthys and occupied by the McSweeneys. The first member of the McSweeney clan, who were Galloglasses, to occupy this castle was Donal Owen McSweeney in 1584. The castle is unusual in its design in that it has 2 redans extending on opposite corners. These redans are unusual as compared with other tower houses in this particular district. The McSweeneys had been chief wardens of Blarney Castle prior to occupying this castle here at Machaniglas.
Mcroom is very central and indeed very convenient and offers the opportunity to tourists to visit the famous Blarney Castle. This is the most famous of all the McCarthy castles and is renowned throughout the world. It is less than a half-hour drive away from Mcroom and of course is renowned for its Blarney stone. By kissing the Blarney stone, one is endowed with the gift of eloquence. Or perhaps, similar to one of the McCarthys who once owned the castle, you may go on from here just talking Blarney. Mcroom is also very convenient to the main ferry terminal at Ringaskiddy and welcomes many visitors from Great Britain and France. Cork Airport has a high throughput of visitors from all over Europe. Car hire facilities are availed of at the airport and many visitors frequently stay on in Mcroom or stop over en route to their destination further west in Cork or Kerry. Welcome to Mcroom at the entrance to the town is sincere. The reconstruction of a miniature version of the Castle Gate entrance at Hartnett's Cross signposts the way to a traditional market town with a most enlightening history, also to a population of friendly and hospitable people, extending a cordial welcome to all.
Mesdames, Messieurs, Diagoek.
Commentary describing Macrompians and the town is given as follows.
Astute, ambitious, clever people who aspire to better things, and mostly achieve their aspirations.
How would you describe Mcroom people, Jerry, to somebody?
Well, of course, they always say, Barry, that they were never a fool born in Mcroom. And that is one of the old things. And another thing, of course, in case that you didn't ever see it, did you see the famous, whatever you call it, long ago in the Dublin Opinion? You saw that Umra, and the fella leaving Umra, and he pointing, and the pointing, of course, was to Dublin. In other words, every fella that was leaving, in fact, there were stones being lifted inside in the graveyard, and they were getting up from the dead, and they making when the treaty was signed. I think that was the thing, and they pointing to Dublin, you see, and Umra was down. Yeah. So that you have a very big amount of, after all, they have this area, say, has a very big amount of influence in the country.
What does the town mean to you now, Mcroom?
Well, I suppose it means that it's so convenient to me, and I'm proud of it as far as I can remember, it being a lovely, respectable place to live in. Fine people live in it, great mixers, very neighbourly people, and I'd say it's as good a town as you would love to live in.
The town is administered by the Urban District Council, centred at their base in the town hall. Each councillor is an elected or co-opted member of the council, and their monthly meetings are held in the council chamber. The council has an important and influential role to play in the development of the town and can be proud of its past record. Members of a former council back in the 1930s were to the fore in providing this terrace of houses on the old pigeon fields, which is now called Barrett Place. The council also influences the outward appearance of business premises and a planned approach to the development of the urban district. St. Coleman's Park housing development followed representation by the council, and also the Cottage Hospital below the cross in New Street, where bonfires once burned brightly on St. John's Night. Old photographs reveal the transformation that has taken place in Mcroom. Slavin Road, said to be the oldest part of the town, is changed. So also has the South Square. The arched entrance to Duggan's Lane no longer resounds to the footsteps of residents, similar to the other lanes in the town. Mcroom, a town commemorating two bishops, a town within easy reach of nature's great beauty spots, a town whose population has been instilled with a deep sense of the need for a community approach to conservation, where music and song is deeply rooted, appreciated, and of course transmitted through the Gilbert and Sullivan Society, pantomimes, and the bands of the past like the Scintilla. The town is developing and progressing midst its splendid surroundings. Its tradition as a market town continues, but the range and standard of the services on offer are both modern and comprehensive. And now, in concluding these well-deserved praises, to which I have been inadvertently drawn, for I strung them together whilst treading on daisies, while strolling along by the winding salon. Yes, I hope what I've said will be thought quite sufficing, for none can dispute what I boldly assume. You may search the whole world for a place more enticing than this beautiful spot, the sweet town of Mcroom.
Beautiful hometown, Macroom, 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 my beautiful hometown, Macroom. Bishops and patriots have stood here, their memories are still to be found. As you stand in the square and look all around at the beauty and history of this lovely town, if you wish you could walk through the castle domain and see the mist rise o'er the river, and others stay strolling